Hello and welcome to Moneylife. This is Sucheta Dalal. This week, let's talk about what everybody else is talking about, the Cockroach Party of India, and how it started and how it's taken the country by storm. So it started on 16th May 2026. 30-year-old Abhijit Dipke, a public relations student in Boston, made history of sorts. His satirical online creation, sitting in a Boston dorm room, was the Cockroach Party of India. It was created online, complete with a short manifesto, and lo and behold, in a matter of hours, it was gaining momentum. And at the end of a week, it had 20 million followers on Instagram. That's not all. There was attempt to block it. There's all kinds of things happening. Now, who is Abhijit Dipke? He is not entirely a novice. As detractors have been pointing out, he was previously associated with the Aam Aadmi Party social media team, so he understands a bit about computers and online communication. And critics allege that CJP, the Cockroach Janata Party, is just a new avatar of the Aam Aadmi Party. This is completely untrue and quite obviously so. So, how was it created? CJP was a reaction to Chief Justice of India Surya Kant's remarks during a Supreme Court hearing on 15th May. So, one day later, more out of anger, this was created. In that hearing, the Chief Justice likened unemployed youth who fail to find a professional footing to cockroaches. And he said some of them go on to become media, social media, right to information activists, and other activists and start attacking everyone. He, of course, later clarified that these comments were specifically targeted at individuals with bogus degrees because that was the hearing and not youth in general. But this was the third time that the Supreme Court had made disparaging comments, and this went viral. The focal point, of course, was Abhishek Dipke's Cockroach Party of India and the manifesto he created. Now, the phrasing and the clip was just right to go viral. Sometimes these things just catch on. An insect suddenly stops being a bad word. And who should know this better than the BJP, which used chaiwala so well? Now, over the past 12 years, the youth has a lot of reason to be angry. Its so-called demographic dividend hasn't paid dividends at all. There are no jobs. People are looking, hunting for jobs. There's double-digit unemployment in India. Meritocracy has spectacularly failed. Exam after online exam over the last 12 years, which we're boasting about, has proved to be riddled with leaks and shoddy software, changed marks. Even as we speak, this is going on with the CBS exams, but the main one was NEET UG 2026. The exam was cancelled on 7th May after systematic paper leaks were exposed. It has destroyed the aspirations of millions of students. And remember, it's not students alone because it's their families, it's their parents, they're saving for it, they're training for it, and it has led to so many suicides. So it's entire families that are affected. This probably became the tipping point for Gen Z, which sort of latched on to this cockroach analogy with such anger. And remember, like I said, this is not the first leak. Shoddy systems are being exposed as we speak, and they have shattered dreams. So, CJP's manifesto, created in anger, was very succinct. It talked about no post retirement rewards for chief justices. It talked about Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, better known as UAPA proceedings for vote deletions should not happen. 50% women's reservation in parliament, cancellation of corporate media licenses, so called goody media, and a 20-year anti defection ban. This is something we all get upset about. Whoever you vote, the person goes and changes parties. It doesn't seem to matter. Naturally, this resonated with all generations, not just Gen Z. Gen Z is more online. The rest of us, much older, also agreed with this manifesto because it highlighted serious structural concerns: venal politics, brazen party hopping, judicial cronyism, post retirement rewards, which is what leads to certain judgments, media capture by big business, which means certain kinds of news does not come in and sometimes is beaten down through the courts, joblessness, like I said again, and growing anger at the ruling elite flaunting their obscene wealth and power and paralyzing streets with so called VIP motorcades and blockades. You know what happened in Bombay when one lady just lost it when she couldn't pick up her son. Now, what happens next? You have a party, you have 20 million followers on Instagram, increasing every day. So, where do we go from here? CJP is explicitly satirical, unregistered, and digital. In media interviews, Abhijit Dipke has been clear that the goal was not electoral participation, but to disrupt the narrative and provide an outlet for the frustration and to maintain pressure on the government. It's fantastic. Yet, expectations from the Cockroach Party are overwhelming. All of us think this is a revolution that's going to happen. But remember, satire has a natural entropy. It tends to dissipate unless it's converted into a credible campaign with clear goals. So the initial cockroach means subversive, retweeted by all of us, but repetition will dull their edge, right? How many cockroach memes can you see? Everyone thinking he's so clever and so funny. So once the absurdity of the memes as well as the political antiques, remember the BJP trying to kill cockroaches with hate and stamping on them. Once all this ridiculous stuff ends and posting of these reels stops and the blocking of websites, stops having meaning, you then will have malicious litigation against Dipke, which is already happening. But over time, it wears thin because if there's no momentum, people get tired. There's another danger, which is people like me, our age, senior leaders, thinkers, opposition voices, civil society voices who have tried so hard for decades to get Gen Z upset and involved. They think this is the opportunity. And we have been there for so long, we know better than young Dipke and his cockroaches. So they want to step in and help lead this democratic renewal so that CJP emerges as a potential electoral disruptor. Intentions are all very good and noble. They want to polish the thinking of CJP, sharpen its demands with their experience of government in and outside government. But this risks imposing the burden of expectations on something that is so new, unexpected, unplanned, and still finding its feet. So, polishing a satirical moment into coherence is quite dangerous, according to me, because the power and stickiness of Cockroach Party actually lies in its absurdity and the fun factor of its memes. So, although Abhijit Dipke is the founder spokesperson and he's being interviewed all over because you need one figure who started it, CJP is essentially a leaderless swarm of 20 million cockroaches, includes all of us who support the idea. It's become a platform. It has captured public imagination through organic memes. It's not directed by Dipke from a center. Everybody is creating their own anthems, songs, memes, jokes, and we are all retweeting them. It's erupting all over India collectively, and it's disrupting the status quo because each one of these is questioning the establishment. Now, CJP grew from 0 to 20 million Instagram followers in exactly 1 week. The initial spike, based on novelty, shock, and brilliance of reclaiming the vermin slur and projecting cockroaches as survivors amid nepotism, paper leaks, and joblessness, was terrific. But will the movement survive when there's no new outrage? When the government suppresses its social media accounts, as it's been doing, it blocked its ex account for legal reasons, then the litigation. I mean, this man is sitting in Boston, but people are filing litigation over here. And what happens when the NEET crisis fades and people go back to studying? We'll have a familiar cycle of protests, bureaucratic stonewalling, and people giving up. I pray and hope this doesn't matter, but clearly there's a burnout risk. And this is compounded by well meaning efforts to intellectualize the movement. Meanwhile, government's response to CJP in the form of slander campaigns, threats to him and his family, blocking his accounts on the grounds of national security, attacks on the website. These have actually become the best advertisement for CJP. But like I said, the finite life, it shows that the government is in a panic, that CJP and the movement could snowball into something bigger and threatening. Now, they have reason to worry because the world has seen this before. So have we in India. In fact, India Against Corruption, a movement that the BJP supported in a big way in 2011, attracted enormous support, helped people topple a coalition government, ragtag coalition, in 2024, which is UPA 2. But you remember, India Against Corruption collapsed under its own contradictions. AAP was born. It disappointed so many of us. It threw out its original founders and it's floundering. Now, India is not the only country. We have it with limited success, but there have been bigger successes. Sri Lanka's Aragalaya in 2022 was a leaderless social media coordinated movement built on dark humor. It forced President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to flee. 2025 Gen Z Madagascar protests. Mobilized through Facebook groups and encrypted apps, it became the first Gen Z led revolution that toppled a regime in Africa. The trigger was chronic water and power shortages. Now, that's not all. September 2025, massive Gen Z led protests in our neighboring Nepal following a government ban on social media. It unleashed such anger against endemic corruption and nepotism, true of India. After an interim government for a short while, this country has elected 36-year-old Balan Shah, a rapper and a structural engineer, as its youngest prime minister in March 2026. 2 months ago, still too new, but definitely toppled the government and said, "We don't want the old anymore." Then there is Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky is perhaps the most dramatic example of a satirical anti establishment figure whose political brand was built on mocking the establishment. He won a landslide election and is leading the country today with courage and resolve in this long war against Russia. Bangladesh, another neighbor. Student led protest of 2024 forced Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to flee. She's sitting right here in Delhi. An interim government was followed by elections in 2026. But here, the student led National Citizens Party won only 6 out of 30 seats, highlighting the difficulty of converting this protest power into electoral success. But it achieved its main objective of toppling a government that was seen as despotic. Other movements that have weaponized absurdity have existed around the world. It happened with Iceland's Pirate Party, Italy's Five Star Movement, Spain's Podemos. It shows that these kind of satirical efforts, organic, which capture the imagination, are capable of dismantling governments. Whether they deliver lasting results is another question. Remember the Arab Springs. It did topple some regimes, but then there was a brutal crackdown, and with no clear leadership, it over time dissipated. Occupy Wall Street. Similar. Global financial crisis of 2008 affected the whole world. Countries far away went bankrupt, but it failed to translate that protest energy about inequality and bank bailouts into any actionable policy which led to substantial change. What these collectively suggest is that satirical digital youth led movements do topple governments that have lost touch with people's aspirations, that turn too arrogant, especially in the middle of economic grievances. But if these movements can survive government suppression, then it leads to change. CJP today is doing one thing well: it's holding a mirror to a captured political system, a defensive judiciary, a skewed economy, and a compromised media. But it's too early to say whether it will actually spark a revolution or merely prod political parties in government and in the opposition to engage with the youth without dismissing them as parasites, cockroaches, and anti nationals. To my mind, we're already seeing the opposition more charged up about what they need to do before they lose the momentum to this swarm of cockroaches which says none of the above. Anything more requires transitioning from virality to organization, funding, leadership, and finally, electoral victory. In a nation of 1.4 billion people with deep inequalities, cockroaches definitely stand for resilience, not nuisance. The real question is whether the system will adapt by addressing root causes and double down, or it will keep on with the rhetoric of exterminating cockroaches, leading to a greater backlash. History shows that ignoring such voices rarely ends well, it only amplifies them. And the reaction, the 1 week reaction, shows that the voices that were low and suppressed are out there, loud, and in the open. True change demands listening to the swarms before they become unstoppable. If you agree, do share this video. Let's not have too many hopes, but let's support and hope that everybody responsible understands what the swarm of cockroaches is saying. Thank you.